so I'm just going to give a quick presentation on the BCO tool that's developed for Precision FDA. So just a quick introduction to Precision FDA. It's a secure cloud-based platform for the genomics community. It allows users to access and share databases, pipeline, and applications. The BCO tool is, and anyone in the public can request access. So I think it's pretty open if you have a good reason to be using it. Quick introduction to the BCO tool. It was originally developed as a command line tool for the manipulation of biocompute objects. I adapted it to be a Precision FDA tool, and currently it's open on the Precision FDA website for anyone with PFDA access to make use of. So it's really easy to find. If you look under applications, it's currently just listed as one of the top applications, although you could always search for it. It's titled BCO tool. Added by me, and show you when you click on it, it gives a little bit about the different inputs and outputs, which I'll go a little bit into more in a second. You can see execution history, currently just me, in the future, hopefully other people, and a little bit more detailed documentation on how to use it, what the different arguments are, different modes. So I'm going to quickly go over configuration to kind of give you an idea what the different options are. So currently there's 6 different options for modes, convenient little drop-down menu. Some of the big things being that it can validate a BCO according to a schema, the default being the current. It can generate a mapping file for conversion of BCOs, can convert BCO. There's some automatic conversion in place, or you can use mapping file. Prints an HTML version of the license agreement. It runs CWL specified in the BCO, and also there's an option to just list a little bit more detail of the different options. So the BCO supports a URL, so it's just a sample URL to BCO. It's also super easy to upload JSON file for biocompute objects. So just add files. And then there's also an option for adding a mapping file for validation or for conversion for BCO, so the typo, and specifying a schema for validation. And these depend on what mode you're running. So I'm going to give 2 quick examples. One example is just validating and converting a single BCO. And then I'm going to give a second example of batch converting BCOs. So it's like pretty easy. So I'm going to select just validate, and I'm going to select a test BCO that I've already updated. So in this case, I'm uploading the file, and I'm going to run the application. What I should have showed, it was there earlier, is that there's an option for running app and running batch. So for this one, I selected running the application. You can check the logs if you're interested. You could just let an execution run, or you could check the logs and kind of stay up to date when it's running, and it will tell you the status. So like, okay, it's ready to run. Okay, it's currently running, and it will give you some information about what's actually going on, and eventually it'll be finished. These is pretty quick. So these workflows I've found have always, honestly, it's taken like 30 seconds for it to go from like just putting in the request and then it being finished. So for validation, you can go look in your files. There'll be an output log, which tells you a little bit about how the workflow went. So there's a lot of like cool, you can publish it, the results, there's a lot of cool options. But in this case, just saying that there were some errors found, you can look at the error log. So this is for validation. Then if you go look at the error log, wait for me to, it just gives some more detailed about like fields that were missing, or gives some like schema specific information. The option to generate the mapping file, it's a little bit more just like, hey, this was what was missing, and fill in with what you want it to be. But this is, as you can see, an invalid according to the current schema. So now we can just convert that same BCO. In this case, I'm not uploading a mapping file. I'm just going to try to do the automatic conversion. So not specifying a mapping file, just convert and selecting the same as before. This is just another way you can just kind of sit and wait on your execution, and it will show you the status too, and eventually the output will pop up. And so in this case, it just says that the BCO is converted successfully and gives you the name it was saved under, and then you can go into your files and the converted BCO is there. So it is a really good way for just checking the validity of a BCO, especially for the current schema. And it does support a fair amount of automatic conversion. So it'd be really great for just quickly checking and then fixing. And then I was going to give another quick example for batch conversion. So this time I just wanted to show URLs. So here's just 4 different URLs for actually one of the BCOs is the same as before, and then 3 just very other similar ones that also are invalid. And then you can run a batch app for conversion, and it kind of does each of them as a separate step, but it runs them at the same time. So you see they're all idle and they're all running at the same time, and they're all going to finish at the same time. And, if you can then go look at your files, you'll have all of the converted BCOs. And then just quickly show a little bit too much time for me to talk, but in a second, you'll see that they all just converted fine. Sorry. So if you look at the object ID at the top, we have our first one, our second one, our third one, our fourth one, and they all converted fine. And I had time for questions, but that's all the presentation. And those are just 2 really quick examples. There's a lot of cool things you can do with BCOs, and you can do single, you can do batch, and I think, it's really useful for just checking and converting invalid BCOs and just making sure you're doing the right things. Okay, that's my presentation. And just to show you all, if you go to the home page, you see that the script is hosted here, and it gives you the link to where it is hosted on GitHub, so people can pull from this. There is also a Docker container for the BCO tool, and the BCO tool is really useful for anyone who has created a biocompute object and they want to validate to make sure they follow the schema accordingly, or to just easily convert if they made any mistakes. It is also useful for anyone who wants to get some more detailed information about the license agreement or other attributes of the biocompute object. So just good for keeping biocompute objects standardized as they should be. And I think that's